Hello and welcome to the latest part of Let's Play FireRed. In the last episode we caught ourselves Apocalypse, the latest team member in our team. And in this episode we're going to go ahead and take on the first dungeon of the game, which is Viridian Forest. Before we do, however, we have to go through the obligatory catching tutorial. And of course, there's one of these in every game. They don't let you skip these, which is probably the worst part of them, and you already sort of know how to catch. I mean, it's the same way as battling in the sense that you weaken your Pokemon down, and then you throw a ball at them, and then depending on the ball and the catch rate of the Pokemon, you can just go ahead and catch them. Catch rates in this generation and in this game go the opposite to levels, if that makes sense. So, and your progress through the game, you'll find Pokemon that are generally harder to catch. That's the general pattern of the game, I guess. Not always the case. There are some Pokemon that we'll run into later on that are harder to catch than others, depending on their position during the game. But for this early portion of the game, you can generally expect your Pokemon to have fairly easy catch rates. They're not really going to break out if you've got them in the deep yellow, early red. And so we're going to go ahead here and head to Viridian Forest, which is the first dungeon of the game. And it's worth pointing out too that Viridian Forest is home to a couple of bug Pokemon and Pikachu, and we'll get to him in a minute. The first Pokemon we're going to encounter is Caterpie. Caterpie is your normal bug type Pokemon. He evolves into Metapod at level 7, and of course evolves into Butterfree at level 10. At level 7, if you catch your Caterpie and then evolve him to a Metapod, it will learn Harden, and at level 10 it will learn Confusion. The other bug type Pokemon is Weedle. He's a bug poison. At level 7 he'll evolve into a Kakuna, again learning Harden, and at level 10 he will evolve into Beedrill, which I think he learns Focus Energy in this game. In terms of which one I would recommend, I guess Weedle and the Beedrill line are better in this generation. Neither of the early bug lines I can really recommend using, at least on a competitive level, if you're playing FireRed and Leaf Green, the competitive scene in that one. Beedrill, for one, will get a lot better bug and poison type moves and a Mega Evolution as of Generation 6, and Butterfree will be getting an increase in its special attack, and as well as Bug Buzz and a move called Quiver Dance, which is doing wonders for it in the competitive scene. Basically anything that has Quiver Dance is worth using. But as for this game, I would give them a pass. If you really do want to use a bug type Pokemon on your team, go towards Scyther and Pinsir, which we'll be running into later on. So this is our first official trainer battle that isn't our rival here, and it's worth noting that trainer battles give you more experience than wild Pokemon. So majority of grinding that I'm going to do off screen will be fighting Pokemon in between trainer battles on the routes. You will see me using Chisel for a majority of Viridian Forest. I will switch it up to Apocalypse later on, because I do want Apocalypse to learn Karate Chop, which is a fighting type move, and Low Kick, which will be very helpful for Onix as well. I did try to use Apocalypse, as you see in this battle. The problem with Apocalypse is that he doesn't really have too many good moves to begin with. He'll get a lot of really great moves after we beat the first gym, but for these opening battles, Apocalypse's speed will be lowered. And Apocalypse really works because he's a fast attacker. Mankey and Primeape are both very fast attackers that have low defense, and particularly in the later game, that really does work to its detriment because we're going to be coming up against flying types especially in the midst of Fuchsia City and Celadon City, and that is really where Primeape really struggles to make its mark. The reason why you pick Primeape on your team is for the early game, and that's where it's really going to come into its own on these next coming routes after Pewter City. So we'll just go ahead and use a potion here, because I overestimated how tough that Caterpie could be. They're surprisingly more defensive than you think they are, if you're not using a super effective move, which you always want to be attacking with a super effective move in most cases. In later generations, the AI definitely gets an improvement in the sense that you don't always want to be attacking, because it will use, I know for a fact, going against Klefki, for example, in Generation 6, you have Crafty Shield, you have a Spiky Shield for a Chestnut in Generation 6. The AI in this game is not that good. You'll have Pokemon that have moves that they're not meant to have, and believe me, we'll talk about that when we get to the Elite Four. But there are a couple of trainers here and there that will have surprise moves, or at least will get critical hits where they're really inconvenient to do so. Now coming in here, you'll see me sending in Apocalypse to Kakuna. The only move that Kakuna and Metapod will ever use in trainer battles is Harden. And of course, this means that if you have a low-level Pokemon, such as Apocalypse, or if you picked up a Pidgey, or Rattata even, the best way to grind is to do it against these Cocoons, because they will never attack you. You can just keep scratching away and you'll have more than enough PP to take them down. Sadly though, this means that it is very, very boring to watch, and I will be fast forwarding through the majority of these Cocoon battles because it is essentially scratch harden, scratch harden, scratch harden. Very boring to watch and much worse to play, I assure you. Just keep attacking against these guys. Don't bother lowering their defense or their speed or anything like that. If you have a Kakuna or a Weedle that you picked up, use Poison Sting and let Poison do the work for you as well, just to make the job a little bit easier in taking these guys down. It is insanely worth the experience though. A normal Caterpie, as we saw there, gave about 86 experience from a trainer. This Kakuna here is going to give us 106, which is absolutely huge for this point in the game. There you go, you get 2 levels off that. You can see already too that Apocalypse's attack and speed are its main features going there, at least 13 at level 5. Viridian Forest is an interesting dungeon, isn't it? I mean, it's so memorable when you're playing the game, but any other time, I never seem to remember Viridian Forest. It's something that's there, and when you're walking through it, the music is familiar and all the experiences of fighting the bug catchers. It's a first dungeon that's very easy. It holds your hand, I think is a good way to put it. But Viridian Forest itself is just not memorable in its layout. There's no major items that you can get here that are really worth it. I mean, you could pretty much pass up the Pokeball and the potion that I received earlier. Which is why, if you're wondering, when I went to the Pokemon Mart, I only got 4 of those items because you're going to pick up an extra Pokeball and a potion. If you are speed running this game, that's a great way to save yourself from having to go to the Pokemon Mart by just going to get that Pokeball and that potion. It will save you some time. The other Pokemon that you can find here is Pikachu. Pikachu is the mascot of Pokemon, for better or for worse, and he's the second in the evolution to Raichu. The first is of course Pichu. Pikachu always strikes me as the mascot that we don't want to have and is constantly shoved down our throats. So many people have talked about how annoying Pikachu is, and whilst I don't hate Pikachu, I definitely think that he doesn't need to be the mascot. There are a bunch of other Pokemon that are more suitable for the job than Pikachu. I can think of Charizard for one, Mewtwo, if we're going straight Generation 1, Clefairy if you wanted to have it that way, which it originally was. This trainer, by the way, will always start with a Metapod, so if you want to know when to switch, have your weak Pokemon out to start this battle with. And of course I'm going to fast forward that as well. Going back to Pikachu though, he's for a second stage Pokemon, you would think that he's better than what he is. He's got decent special attack, and Raichu is actually a mixed attacker, which is interesting. If you look at its stats, both its attack and its special attack are reasonably high. The problem is that A, they're not fast enough to really, the metagame has changed so much in recent years that base 100 speed now is a little bit slower than what it usually was back in Generation 3. So Pikachu in this game is definitely useful to have, but there are so many flaws with it at the same time that he's sort of a flawed team member. Using Pikachu on your team is sort of a cliche, but I'm going to spoil it now. If I do run into a Pikachu, I will be using it for my team. I won't waste time trying to find it, because it's just not worth it with that appearance rate, let me tell you that. For something like a Routes in the early Hoenn games, absolutely, I think that's worth trying to find it. But for something like Pikachu, yeah, I can't really justify it. It does learn a lot of really good moves if you have the right TMs at the right time, and of course, for the early game, as I said, very good to have that advantage against the flying types and the early water types that you're going to come up against as well. Level 6 brings us Low Kick from Apocalypse, which is really going to be its key attacking method in the upcoming gym battle. The reason why that is because Geodude and Onix, which Brock has, have very heavy Pokemon if you actually look at their weighting in the Pokedex, and especially Onix falls victim to that. For these bug types though, it's not really going to come in useful, and Low Kick's not really going to be used outside of that gym battle. It's especially not good against Rattata, because Rattata is actually lighter than Mankey, which is actually interesting in a way, but I guess it does make sense that a rat would be lighter than a monkey. So I'm not going to keep Low Kick on it for much longer than the first gym. And as I said before, I will be putting Rock Tomb on Apocalypse as well to give it that advantage over flying types. I will say, as we head back towards the Pokemon Center, you don't get a lot of money at this point in the game. Money is sort of an issue in Generation 3. I feel as though it's more of an issue in FireRed and Leaf Green than it is in Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald. Unless you're buying full restores, or unless you're buying Ultra Balls to catch the 60 Pokemon required for the post-game, you really don't need to spend that much money in these games, unless you're buying TMs or something like that. There are a couple of items that I am going to spend my money on in this game, but mostly don't expect my money to be changing too much. I like to be a little bit conservative with my money in Pokemon games. It's definitely worth, having as much money as possible. Over here, we are going back towards Route 22. Why? Because there is a rival battle that we need to take care of, and of course this is Ricky. There's really not too much that I have to say about Ricky at this point in the game, because all he has is a level 9 Pidgey and a level 9 starter that is super effective against the one you have. The point of me doing this battle is to really explain why you need to do this battle now. Viridian Forest, as I said, does contain mostly bugs and Pikachu, which really don't give you that much experience in the long run, but is a good place to grind, and I'll show you where I like to grind before Brock. And as I said, the early game is probably the best time to do that, because you don't want to be wasting your time later on. The reason why you do this battle now is because you know, you'll want to get up a few levels. The level 9 Squirtle and the level 9 Pidgey are more threatening than you think they would be. Squirtle especially can be a bit of a pain during this battle. It has high defense at this point of the game, and your scratches and your low kicks and your tackles aren't really going to be doing that much. It is another glorified scratch tackle battle in a similar way to the first rival battle, but you really won't be threatened that much. I mean, I'm using a potion for Apocalypse here because I want him to get the experience, but in the long run, it's an easy battle if you have the level advantage, which I do for this fight. So there we go, level 8 for Apocalypse. 19 attack, which is already pretty good. And of course you get 144 for winning. It's a weird optional rival battle. I mean, you don't expect it to be there, and I certainly didn't know about it until I played through FireRed at least the second time. And I've lost that battle a fair few times, not with this run, but in previous runs I've lost that battle because I seem to think that I can take on a level 9 Pidgey with a Bulbasaur, and that just ends horrendously. So I'm going to meet you back in Viridian Forest, and if we find a Pikachu, I'll let you know. Oh, hello. Wasn't expecting you to be here. So here's that Pikachu that I said I would catch if I found it. I was walking past that trainer that we last fought on the way to the next trainer, and here he is. By the way, I've also leveled up my Pokemon. Chisel is now at level 12 and is about to reach level 13. Granted, it gets experience. And Apocalypse is level 8. Now that we've found this Pikachu, I will also add it to my team as well. And it is definitely going to be a welcome team member at this early point in the game. Once again, my nicknaming skills are very subpar, and I decided to name it Iggy. I-double-G-Y. I can't say G's properly. Iggy. You know, to go on a weird tangent, I guess, to sort of fill up the nicknaming time, I live in Australia, as you guys could probably tell by the accent. The major city of Australia that I'm from, or near, is Sydney. S-Y-D-N-E-Y. Apparently, when I say the word Sydney, normally, without pronouncing the D, I say Sydney, like without the D. And I never knew that I did that until listening back to myself doing it, and you'll probably be able to hear it if you go back and listen to it carefully. There's your second potion, and again, speed running through, that's exactly where you want to get those potions from. You don't really want to waste your time other than that. I'm going to move Iggy to the front here. Obviously I'm not going to use him. I just want him to get a bit of experience, and between now and Brock, I'm obviously going to be doing some grinding off-screen just to catch Iggy up to Apocalypse. That bug catcher has my name, Sammy. If you are wondering, there's always one trainer in every Pokemon game named Samuel. In Gold and Silver, Samuel can be found in the Ice Path, the route that's before the Ice Path. I think Route 43 it is. He's a cool trainer. In the Victory Road of Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire and Ruby, Sapphire and Emerald, there's a Samuel. In Kanto, there's a Bug Catcher Sammy. In Sinnoh, there's a Sammy that can be found just past Heart Home City on the way to the town with the unknowns in it. I think it's Salacian Town. And there's one in Unova as well that I can't remember. None in Kalos though, which is interesting. So, going up to Pewter City here, it is the first town with the first gym. Viridian City, I guess technically counts, but Pewter City is at least the first one that you can take on, because the gym leader isn't there yet, whoever he may be. And of course, let's listen to this. Oh, huh. No, I'm sorry. No. Must have dozed off there. Oh, what were we up to? Oh yeah, so, it's about this point that I'm going to cut the episode off, but next time I will have grinded off screen, and let's take on Brock, eh? See you then.